Hey everyone, to all the men I've tolerated it before is taking a little bit of a summer vacay. So for the weeks of July and August, we will be posting on our main feed our recordings of our Still Comfy episodes featuring Jules Washington. Remember, Still Comfy is our spin-off series where Jules and I get live on YouTube several Mondays of the month to discuss our favorite comfort movies and whether or not they still hold up with our modern lens and viewpoints. And every Tuesday on Instagram Live, we cover some television shows like Mad Men, One Tree Hill, and A League of Their Own, the Prime Amazon series. So make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms, Men I've Tolerated Pod and Natalie K124 on Instagram, Natalie K124 on TikTok. Consider joining our Patreon to get the bonus episodes that you've been missing with our friends and our beloved guests. And have a great rest of your summer. I'll see you in September.
Here we go. We did it. After a hectic and chaotic day, friends, tolerators, jelly pops, Still Comfy Titanic has prevailed. Here we are. I'm your host of Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, Julia Washington. I am joined by...
I'm the host of To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, your weekly look at everyday misogyny, Natalie Katona herself.
And today we are covering the one, not the only.
Wait, nope. I can't breathe.
Still Comfy Titanic edition, because it has been 25 years since this film has released. And now for the Google summary. James Cameron's Titanic is an epic action. No, keep doing it. Is an epic action-packed romance set against the ill-fated maiden voyage of the RMS Titanic, the pride and joy of the White Star Line, and at the time, the largest moving object ever built. She was the most luxurious liner of her era, the ship of dreams, which ultimately carried over 1,500 people to their death in the ice-cold waters of the North Atlantic in the early hours of April 15, 1912. Which actually doesn't tell us anything about the movie. That summary of the movie doesn't tell us anything about the movie.
It literally just tells us about the history of the Titanic.
Yes.
Which I was actively Googling during the 3-hour movie because I was like, I might as well learn some facts.
And if you watch Downton Abbey, that's how Downton Abbey opens, is the sinking of the Titanic.
That was an Oscar nominated and possibly winner song that I just made in the back of my throat. So again, I'm waiting for my Oscar in the mail.
Come on, Academy. What you doing? So this film, as we mentioned, is 25 years old this year, which is wild to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslett.
Mm-hmm.
Kate Winslet's character is 17 years old in this film, but Kate Winslet herself was like 22, 23 when the film was made. So she's still age appropriate for DiCaprio's interests at this point.
Right. Do you think that's when it started? Like Leonardo was like, I will only date 22-year-olds who look like 17-year-olds because I died on the Titanic. And that was my first trauma. And that's where my brain stopped developing.
I love that theory.
I have so many conspiracy theories linked to the Titanic movie.
I love that theory so hard. I had to fix the screen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Today was a hard day, listeners. And hey, if you're tuning into our show, we actually, because we're using a third party system to stream live, we don't know you're here. So drop some comments so we can see you and tell us that you're here. So, Natalie,
Yes.
I love your theory. But there's so much that happens in this film.
Uh-huh.
And I honestly, it's like, where do we even begin? So let's start with just discussing
Us.
Kate.
Oh,
Us?
Kate Winslet.
I was
No,
gonna say
I was
Kate.
going to start from my beginning. So I was 10 years old. I was in a third grade classroom in Indiana, and one it girl, who my best friend and I still think is a very it girl, had seen Titanic, and my 10-year-old brain went, everyone has seen Titanic but me. Everyone has seen Titanic but me. The entire grade has seen Titanic but me. And I went home and I told my father, we need to get Titanic tickets. And he said, that movie is not appropriate for you. And we argued and we
Mm.
fought until it was on VHS, the 2 VHS set.
The 2 VHS
And he was like,
set.
now you can watch Titanic. And he sent me upstairs for every part that there were titties. As if one day I wouldn't grow my own titties.
Yeah, I feel like
But
that's
I snuck
interesting.
down. I don't know if my father even knows this, but we were watching in the basement,
Uh-huh.
and he was like, "Go upstairs, titties." And so I snuck back down, and I did see the hand slap on the car
Which has been recreated in multiple things ever
multiple things.
since. Interesting. So, okay, so 1997, I was 13.
Yeah, I was in the third grade.
And you know what? I think it released at Christmas in 97.
Maybe. So I didn't even get to see the It movie of my birthday.
Because I remember in January, my friend had a birthday, and that was her birthday party, was for all of us to go see. And I had already seen it at that point.
Right.
So
How did you see it? Usually you were more monitored than I was. The titties, Jules.
I think because it was a historical.
I tried to go that angle. I was like, I'm just trying to learn about our history.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, inappropriate. But my best friend, who will not be named because this is throwing her under the bus, just took her second graders to the 3D showings in the movie theater. And she called me and she was like, who knew your dad was right? Because in the middle of this movie, I'm like, should I be? Thank God my kids are asleep.
Right.
She's like, I forgot all the titties. And Liam's just like, I love the Titanic. And she's like, how about nipples?
But did you see the titties though? I actually remember now because in 96 my dad almost died. So from then on they kind of forgot about me. That's
There you
probably, and
go.
the movie theater was in walking distance of our house. It's now a grocery store. So that's how I saw it. But I loved it. And then everyone came back from winter break. Oh my God, the Titanic.
That's why I thought that everyone had seen it.
And I was
except
like,
for me.
yeah. And I was like, I don't like it anymore because everyone likes it. Because I was that bitch.
Don't be that kid.
I
No
was
one
that
likes
kid.
that kid.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't like me now. So it works.
Well, I didn't realize that like playing with puppies right before we went live would do this to my hair. Like I went real drag queen with the eye makeup because I went to drag yesterday. And I was like, oh, I'm alive.
Yeah.
And then I just did this. Thinking that it would stay smooth in the elements.
I love that. I have no idea where my glasses are. I am only wearing mascara. I've had an interesting, this. Listeners don't know this, but the reason why this episode didn't get posted to our Instagram is because my phone doesn't like to work. It decided that after any use, it needed to reboot. And for reboot, for how long? Just depends on its mood. So I, ordered a new phone because apparently we here in the Central Valley do not enjoy phones that are high gig. And it arrived and it's just been a blast.
It's like the complete last hour of the Titanic.
100%.
Okay.
It was chaos.
Can I just say that was the most impressive part of the movie, I thought, was that the actual shipwreck lasted longer than the good times. Because I could only remember the good times.
Yeah, and And I'm pretty confident that's intentional.
Yeah.
Because from the time that they do hit the iceberg, they're like, we maybe have an hour, and then
Yeah.
if it is an hour
Yeah.
for the rest of the film. And this is probably why this movie was so goddamn expensive to shoot, because water's expensive to use.
Yeah.
Are you going blue because we're talking about the Atlantic Ocean?
I am. Yeah, I'm frozen.
Love it. But I want to talk about Kate Winslet's character.
Okay.
Because I for somehow I didn't realize she was 17 in the film. Like, her character was 17. Yeah. Somehow I missed that. And she's exactly how a man writes a woman who is independent but isn't actually allowed to be independent because of the era in which she lives.
However, once I had the context that she was 17, her entire personality clicked into place for me. Yes. I was like, and this is why you act this way.
Yes, because she's very like, well, in the beginning,
give me a cigarette.
Yeah, she's very like, what's the word? She is disagreeable with her mom.
Yeah.
They have that conflict.
She hates Cal.
She hates her fiance. She's, can think for herself. Don't tell her what to think.
I'm a grown-up. She has a big I'm a grown-up energy.
But the minute she sees Leonardo DiCaprio, she is a boy crazy teenager.
Yeah.
And I kind of hate it.
Oh my gosh. Do you? I honestly, given the context that she was 17, her character was 17, made me get back on her side. The thing that I couldn't buy into is that Jack knew all of the science and the math of the sinking of the boat. I was like, how do you know this?
Well, he's well-traveled, Natalie.
He's well-traveled.
But I think the reason why I hate it is because it was through a male's lens.
Oh, yeah.
And that bothers me, because it's like, we know we can be erratic when emotions are involved. I just don't like the way men interpret it.
Oh, yeah. Give me a how to deal Mandy Moore on the Titanic. That's what I need.
Yeah.
I need a saved Mandy Moore on the Titanic.
Yes.
I need a Mia Thermopolis on the Titanic. What? Oh, at some point I texted my friend and I was like, Titanic is just Romeo and Juliet, but at sea.
Pretty much. That's literally, it's essentially, yep, 100%. They worked very hard to make sure you understood that there were class issues.
Oh yeah, the class issues. The class.
How is writing in steerage?
With the rats.
Well, there's not as many rats this time, and everyone's like,
and the new money with the unsinkable Molly Brown.
Yeah. Which I felt like she was the only practical woman on the ship.
She was. She was the only one who was like, hi, ladies. What if we did something?
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole time they're running around, Kate Winslet, she starts her journey by potentially throwing herself off the ship because she's so devastated about her fate. Which, we have come to learn is it's really hard to break out of that in 1912, because what else are you going to do at 17 years old? According to her mother, the only reason to go to university is to get married, and she's already on the path to that. So what's the point of her going?
I had somehow blocked out that her mom was selling her to Cal.
Oh,
I had somehow blocked out that the reason why Cal was even involved was because they were having money issues and her mother had basically sold her to Cal.
Yeah. Who's a piece of shit.
Who's a piece of shit.
So do you think Billy Zane is an actual piece of shit person?
No.
Or do you think that he just keeps getting cast as horrible men?
So I like to think of Billy Zane as the character Coop from the last season of Charmed, where he plays a human version of Cupid that they call Coop, and then he gets to marry Phoebe. That's how I like to think of Billy Zane.
I didn't watch the last season of Charmed, so now I'm gonna have to, because I swear every movie I see him in, he is this guy.
Yeah, watch it not be Billy Zane. Watch it be like a complete, like a like a Billy Zane light. And I've just decided it was Billy Zane.
We need a Billy Zane type character for
Yeah.
this role in Charmed.
But so instead of just like taking notes on my grievances with Cal because we knew I would have many, and I was like,
I
I don't,
literally DM'd you
yeah,
and was like, I can't wait for your rant.
I was like, here's the thing. No one's rooting for Cal. No one rooted for Cal 25 years ago. There's no one. No one can make an argument with like, well, they needed money. So I instead just kept taking notes about like, hey, don't get comfortable because it hasn't gotten better. So I wrote, Billy Zane isn't an old school archetype of the past. Men like him still exist. Grown
Mhm.
men are still grooming teenagers to be their wives.
Leo.
Leo.
Except
Drake.
he's not
Well, except for he's not going to
he doesn't
marry
want to
them.
marry him because once they turn 26, they're out.
The idea of women's taste, in this case with Rose,
art.
it was art, frivolous and dumb. And
then the audacity for them to be like, this is a Monet, this is a
yeah,
Picasso. And you're just like, I mean, that's a little heavy handed to be like, she's clearly smarter than Billy Zane.
right. And then I said, and as long as we're being paid less and getting and not getting higher paid jobs at an equitable rate, men will still always be able to manipulate us with their money.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the Billy Zane's character is such a coward
Yeah.
and such a trash human.
Oh, the male fragility just rolls off of him.
The audacity for him to use someone else's child to try and save himself.
Yeah. Well, and that's his whole thing with her too, is that he very much believes that she should be more grateful towards him than
Yeah.
she is. And therefore, because she's not, he's just going to hit it into her. And I'm like, maybe not the move.
Yeah.
Have you tried being nice?
Have you tried being nice? Have you tried actually loving the person you're intended to marry?
Right.
Because I feel like that's a better vibe.
Listen, the 17-year-olds wanting to bone on a ship, tale as old as time.
Yeah.
Happens on every cruise line.
Literally any vacation.
Right. Whether or not Billy Zane was there or not, two 17-year-olds were going to bang on a boat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in the fact that like he never gets it. There's not a moment like he's trying to pay off men who are going to die on this boat. I'm like, how does he even comprehend that his money might have power here?
That's the best part because he still thinks that he can pay his way onto a women and children only boat. I thought we had a deal. Your money is worthless. We're all dying.
Right. Sir, I know I'm not getting on a lifeboat. I'm the person putting people on the lifeboat.
Right, which means there won't be any left because as we learned earlier in the movie, because of aesthetics, they didn't have enough lifeboats on the boat for every passenger.
There were so many what I referred to as cocky white man problems on this boat.
Yep.
So like first off, some billionaire funded this boat. So he's like, I want it to be fast. And I'm like, have you seen how big this bitch is?
Right.
Then the other guy who architected the boat, designed the boat, he's like, they wouldn't let me put enough lifeboats on it. Thank God it doesn't sink. And then like the literal disregard of like, did we ever find those binoculars? Nope.
No.
But we'll see an iceberg. I can smell an iceberg.
Who says that? That's so like, what?
I was like, this boat is just filled with cocky white man problems. And that's why I won't go on a cruise. I don't believe boats should be that big.
Big boats do freak me out.
Boats should not be that big. Because here's the thing too. Boats sink. It happens. We hit icebergs.
Yeah, because Victor, what's his face even says, well, of course it's going to sink. It's steel.
It's steel. Boats sink. Giant squids, icebergs, hurricanes, all of it.
Yeah.
it was the cracking in the middle for me,
Oh.
and the fact that it was gonna sink you down where I was like, "I will never be on a big boat. You won't
Mhm.
catch me hanging on a railing watching people slide down
Yeah.
the broken piece of the boat.
Yeah.
No, I'm smarter than your average bear."
I wonder what if they've built boats that big. I don't know anything about boats.
I don't know anything about cruise lines, but the Titanic looked like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it did. It was huge.
It was like the same shape of every cruise ship I've ever
Yeah.
seen on a targeted ad.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, "Why did we do that again?"
Right, right. Okay, I do have to say I did take issue with the multiple references of Rose's situation being compared to slavery and
Oh,
enslavement.
yeah, I wrote that down. I wrote that down. She called the boat like, the 3rd line of her narration of her past is like, "But for me, the Titanic was my slave ship to America." I went, "Yikes, James
No.
Cameron."
Yeah, that's maybe why people don't like you, James Cameron,
Right.
because he continuously has issues from non-white communities about his
Mhm.
work. So maybe he needs to be sat down and
Well,
reminded.
do you do you know what I took issue with besides the slave ship and slaves? They kept saying slaves over and
Over and
over
over and
again.
over again.
I was like, "Okay, we get it.
Yeah.
You guys enslave people." The fun and fancy free poor people. I'm like,
Oh.
"What?" I was like, "What?" Every
Mhm.
movie, there's some snooty little bitch in a corset being like, my mommy doesn't understand me." And they're like, "Have you ever tried being poor? It's
Right,
fun and fancy free."
right. Which is kind of offensive.
It's offensive. And I've decided that my new conspiracy is that they make us believe through media that the
Mhm.
poor people are fun and fancy free.
Yeah.
Therefore, you never strive to be the bitch in the corset.
Right. Right. Look at it's okay. Poverty's
It's
fine
okay.
until
Poverty's
they
fun. Look at
lock
them
the
chick.
look
Bum,
'em
bum,
the
bum,
jig
dun, 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 dun.
until they lock the doors and tell you you can't leave from a sinking ship.
From a sinking ship because also was it Rose's mom who asked if the lifeboats were going to be designated by
Yes.
class?
Yes.
Still afraid of poor people.
Yeah.
A boat is going down.
Yeah. I just didn't understand why would you lock that level with
Oh,
gates? I don't understand that. What am
I
I missing?
so I truly believe that that happened on the Titanic, and I'm sure it was because it's the same reason why the band was playing, and
Mhm.
it was the same reason why no one would say the ship is sinking until there were, like, visual moments of the ship sinking, and it was a form of crowd control, and they're like, "Well, if we let the poor and fancy free folks up here, then the rich people are gonna panic, and now we're shooting people." And it was
No,
just
but
like,
yeah, but I mean, like, in general, on the boat, why is that a feature to keep
"Oh,
the quote, "lower
you know."
classes" separate? Like, I don't know that doesn't make any that to me seems like a safety issue for so many reasons, as we saw as the ship was
Well,
sinking.
the Titanic was before we had OSHA. I don't know where she got her papers.
Fair, fair. It just was so grotesque to me because
Oh, yeah.
it's like a clear statement of like, you're not good enough to wander the ship.
Uh-huh.
You bought a third class ticket, therefore you are not allowed anywhere
Well
near people who might have paid more.
and a lot of, like, rich people's power comes from their rich fragility and their fear of the poor.
Yeah, because they
So,
exploit them.
yeah, so I'm sure the luxury part of the Titanic could never touch the poor and fancy free part of the Titanic. So they gated them in between them because they were like, "Of course the poor people are going to try to sneak onto our buffet and take our nachos." Because Jack literally has to when he when Rose is like freezing him out or whatever, he
Yeah.
climbs the boat to get to her section of the boat because he knows
Yeah,
it's gated.
that's right, because it is sectioned off. It's just gross. I'm stopping
Mm-hmm.
my cam, but I'm still here.
Okay.
I just don't I just maybe I hate classism. No, I
Oh,
know I hate classism. It just drives me crazy
this
because it's
just
like
in. Jules takes hard turn against classism.
it just I mean, okay.
This just in. Natalie finally convinces Jules that the class wars are real.
I mean, I knew. I already knew. I already knew because I have a lot of personal stuff that's happened in my life being a poor single mother.
Yeah, because they also said, Jack also said to get onto the boat without doing the inspection part of it. We don't have lice, we're Americans.
Yes. That's something I noted. I was like, and both of us are Americans because
Right.
his friend is Italian. So
Yeah.
you know that they would have been like, this is why I think that my people came over without documentation on purpose,
Yeah.
because the Italians were not friends to the American populace at this
No.
point in history, or the American population was not like super thrilled to let Italians in at that point in history.
I was like, Leon, number one, I probably had lice in the 4th grade when I was trying to see this movie. And I was like, America ain't, we don't have no immunity to lice.
Right.
God. Also, you know what else pissed me off? Because Leonardo was poor, they immediately believed he was a rapist and were ready to put him under arrest. And I was like, we never arrest rapists with that kind of urgency.
Right.
Never.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I don't remember Billy Zane's like little butler man being that intense of a cop the entire fucking movie.
That is something that I do remember because I remember thinking like, how well does this man pay you that you are willing to go this far and then also
Unwavering
go down with
loyalty.
the ship?
Unwavering loyalty to chasing around a 17-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't it was again another thing that is egregious about this uber wealthy fragile man.
Also, like, he looks so fragile in this movie. Like,
Mhm.
oozes off of it. I would have loved to have seen more dialogue between him and the unsinkable Molly Brown because I bet you she made him wildly uncomfortable.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it at all. It
Also, why didn't Cal just marry Rose's mom? Why didn't Rose's mom just sell herself to him? They seem to get on fun and fancy free all the time. All the time. I'm like,
They were the
just you
right
two.
level of uptight.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
loved one another.
Mhm. She wasn't young enough probably,
Well,
'cause
probably.
that's our culture.
Yeah. Well, because there was another 19-year-old who was knocked up on the boat, and that is one of the true survivors of the Titanic because I started looking up Titanic facts after the movie. And I will say that once you know the like Easter eggs of the actual Titanic lore, you're like, "Oh, you really did just like weave this in
Mhm.
without being like Titanic lore."
Right. What did you think of the ship guy looking for the jewelry
The ship got
in
Bill
the beginning?
Paxton.
In the beginning.
Well, number one, rest in peace. Bill
Yeah.
Paxton, rest
Yeah.
in paradise. Are you coming for Bill Paxton right
No,
now?
I'm not coming for him.
Um, I love Bill Paxton in this movie. I have recently said that I think we need to start like archaeology being a cool job again. I'm
Mhm.
like, what a cool job. You got paid to find the sunken Titanic, which they actually did.
Yeah.
Like they found it.
Yeah.
I and sure, you're looking for a diamond, but like he was looking for the diamond, but he was also so geeked about that everyone on the boat was so geeked about the Titanic that I was like instantly on their side.
Yeah. I do love that, like oh, okay, not good. Okay. I do love that they open it with, "We are doing this art," yeah, what you said,
Yeah.
archaeological, whatever. And then they bring in somebody who is a survivor to be
Yeah.
like, oh, you're looking for something, you're never gonna find it.
It's
But
in my
here's the story.
pocket.
It's in my pocket. Can we talk about the insurance fraud? Oh my God.
Can we talk about I'm still dirty pissed that she just threw it in the ocean. I was like, you got a whole ass granddaughter and she's gonna marry some mediocre ass man to get good in health insurance because you threw a diamond into the ocean.
Which is essentially priceless. You threw a
Yeah.
priceless diamond. Yeah.
Yes. That I guess people were searching for decades.
Apparently.
And you just had it in your pocket and then you gave it back to Jack? I don't know.
So they could be together.
So they could, well, I didn't know that you had to sacrifice your jewelry to see your loved ones on Titanic purgatory. The end of Titanic reminds me of the end of Lost.
Okay, so I never got into Lost. You've
Well,
referenced Lost a couple of times in some conversations we've had.
okay, everyone, big spoiler for Lost. At the end, against all odds and against everyone complaining, like, I swear to God, if this is it for Lost, I'm gonna light the house on fire. My mom being one of them. They're in purgatory. Like, Jack is the last one to die or something, and he dies, and they're all just like in a church together, ready to go back to that island, being like, we waited for you, Jack. And I was like, oh, Lost stole that from James Cameron.
But I also, okay, so I thought it was kind of weird because it's like, here she comes, she's finally passed on, she gets to be with the love of her life, she reverts back to being a 17-year-old, and everybody on the ship is super thrilled that they're there and making out on the top of the stairs.
Yeah. Because now they can all go to heaven. They were just waiting for her. She was the last survivor.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I also like
Excuse me.
the fact that she had a whole ass family. And like, I don't want to tell you what to do with your soul after you died. Maybe you turn it into two souls and one of you goes with that husband that gave you kids and a granddaughter. And maybe the 17-year-old part of you is still wild and you want to go back on the boat with Jack.
Because that's an interesting theory, because people always talk about that. Like, well, you in heaven, you're with your partner, your soulmate, if the concept of a soulmate.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, what happens when you die? And say you've had multiple soulmates on the planet or partners on the planet that you felt really bonded and connected to and miss regularly.
BJ Novak, in his collection of short stories, have you read it?
Yeah.
That brilliant one where I don't think like a grandson dies and gets to see his grandma in heaven and she's fucking Bruce Springsteen or whatever. Like, they somehow make it so you can visit your loved ones or something in heaven. And he's like, where's grandma? And she's like, awkward. I fuck Billy Joel now.
Yeah.
Okay, grandma. Wildin'. Everyone's just wildin' in heaven.
Did you watch Vengeance or no?
No.
You should. It's really good.
But that was one of my favorite stories from the BJ Novak collection of stories. Just grandmas be wildin'.
Yeah.
And she was like fucking her way through the like dead rock star roster. And I was like, good for you, grandma.
I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
Who wouldn't want to? There's so many dead people who I'm like,
you're in heaven, so there's no STDs.
Exactly. That was the time to be doing it.
Yeah, it's the dream.
But yeah, like the whole idea that like, well, number one, I couldn't imagine, correct? Like, I couldn't imagine getting boned for the first time in the basement of the Titanic, literally 45 minutes before it's gonna crash.
Do you think it was her first time? Because Billie Zane makes that comment. I was really hoping you would visit me last night.
Oh my God, I did catch that. And she was very nonchalant about having sex with Leonardo DiCaprio. So I was like, oh, Rose has been sexually assaulted by Billie Zane before.
Yeah.
There was so much about Billie Zane that I caught this go around where I was like, because I never understood the suicide attempt. I was like, I need more. I even wrote it in my notes before we got deeper into the movie. I was like, I would have loved the scene leading up to the suicide attempt.
This is why I hate female stories through a male lens, because I think that if we had more context, because by itself, it looks like she's being an outrageous, emotional, moody girl.
Yeah.
So no context. And then you weave the context in throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah.
But the movie's so fucking long that by the time you get there, you've forgotten, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like yes, absolutely. Give us the scene beforehand so we know, so we understand, because Billy Zane clearly is abusive, not just because we saw him hit her in the face, but he's probably abusive in other ways.
In other ways. So I truly would have loved to have seen the scene leading up to the suicide attempt. I would like to know where Jack Dawson learned his mediation techniques. I was like, James Cameron has been to therapy. Like, I go, because that's what you do. You distract people and you just talk to them about, like, it's pretty cold out today, right? And you just talk in a nice, soothing tone about things that are true until all of a sudden they're like, well, the chemicals have left my body and I guess I won't yeet myself off of this boat.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, there's so much that this go around I understood about Rose and like why this would happen.
Yeah.
But then also I was like, they managed to sketch a nude, outrun a cop, and bone in the basement of the Titanic with like 2 hours to go until they were all going to be dead. And I was
Yeah.
like, the timing of all of that. And then I was like, oh my God, this movie takes place in the course of 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And I was like, and hey, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll get all hyped up on adrenaline and tell someone I'm not getting on the boat with my rich parents. I'm getting off the boat with you. I'm going to Cabo, baby. But, and when you layer in the context of them being teenagers, I'm like, oh, teenagers would make that stupid decision.
Because, go ahead.
But then you go through the tragedy and the trauma that is the sinking of the Titanic, laying on a frozen door, holding your frozen lover's dead ass hand. And I'm like, well, yeah, no wonder she wasn't ever able to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
She promised him she'd never let go.
That's the whole point.
And she didn't.
That's the whole point. But I also feel like this is a really bad setup for all of us for the rest of our lives. Because this concept of like dramatics in love.
Yeah.
I struggle. I mean, because it's like, it's such a quick reference to her being 17 that you forget by the time you get halfway through the film, and Jack has awakened something in her before they are intimate, and she's just flipped and is just this unmanageable woman.
Wild and
it's like, no, but she's not a fucking woman. She's a 17-year-old girl.
Right. Well, and it truly, like, it just gets me. It gets me because I'm like, if you took out the Titanic, like, this could be a rom-com. Like, but then also,
especially as they're like being chased by like everything imaginable.
If they were just on the Britannica or whatever, the Marietta or whatever one she fucking made fun of when they walked up to the Titanic, she's like, it's not even that big of a boat. I was like, that is a very churlish 17-year-old thing to say right before you get on the most famous boat in existence.
Right.
Like, it's not even that big. Just to get under her mom and Cal's skin.
It's honestly it's such a teenager tactic.
And like, okay, so remember how after I went and saw Barbarian and knew you would never want to see it, but I needed to talk about it?
Yeah.
I kept telling you, I was like, I just said throughout the entire first half of the movie, girl, we don't even know him like that.
Yeah.
Girl, we don't even know him like that. I wanted to say that to Rose. I'd be like, Rose, he gave you one orgasm, maybe. Like, you're in here in your nightgown. Like, James Cameron literally put you in the sheerest material I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just wading through frozen water. And then my logic kicked in and I was like, there's no way they could walk in that frozen water for that long without like losing the ability to move.
Yeah, I would love to know the science behind it too, because every time she started wading through the water in her skirt, I was like, hike up your skirt, girl. Like that fabric is weighing you down, ma'am. Like
I
like you're
remember
still
her.
gonna move slow, but the
Yeah.
wet fabric is like, if you can lift it above the water, do it.
Somehow I remembered her ripping it, and she never did. I was like, "You're not gonna rip that dress?" Like,
Right?
and then like the whole like he's chained to something in the basement of the Titanic, and like she's real convinced someone's gonna help them out. And I was like, "No, girl,
Yeah.
no one's helping you out. This boat is going down."
Yeah, that's the other part of the story that I was like, okay, this is actually pissing me off,
Yeah.
because now you guys are so engrossed in this whole like, I love you, I can't leave you, we have to get out of here together,
Yes.
that it doesn't allow for anyone else to be like, no, we're in tragedy.
Yeah.
We're trying to not drown
The
in the
Titanic is
Atlantic.
stressful. Like it's stressful. And the fact that now I'm pissed off that she did survive and got to talk to Bill Paxton, because I'm like, she jumped off of 2 lifeboats.
Uh-huh.
She literally went nope-a-dope and jumped off of 2 lifeboats.
I was thinking about it too, both times. I was trying to remember, did I ever feel about someone so much that I would be willing to sacrifice my life in that way?
Maybe Penelope.
The answer is not in a lover situation.
No.
I mean, because I was like, I would lay my life down for my child, 100%.
Oh, yeah. But you wouldn't have to, because it was children and women in the boats.
Correct. But for a lover,
No.
I have never felt the desire to not leave.
It must have been some 15 minutes in that basement car. And, like, honestly, I hope one day I have that level of 15 minutes in the bedroom to be all like, yes, I will drown on the Titanic in order to experience more orgasms like that.
But I have to say, I've had very deep, passionate connections, like Jack and Rose level of deepness. What's deepness? But that chemistry, that level of electricity, I've had that. And my answer is still no. I'm staying on the boat.
Yeah, because when that's also part of the problem. The orgasm never wore off.
Yeah.
She didn't get any aftercare after the orgasm. She had to like literally wade through frozen water. So that's also it. Her chemicals never equaled out after the orgasm. She's still in orgasm brain. And your episode of Normal People taught me that I can't think straight when my brain is already deciding that we're going to orgasm.
Hey, I learned that also in my episode of Normal People.
So, and if only Rose knew us and we could tell her, like, never make a decision based off of an orgasm.
Yes, and that list is growing. Don't make decisions after orgasms. Don't make decisions at funerals.
Don't marry the first boy that kisses you.
We got to make an actual list people can look at.
We need to make it like one of those like word art posters that people can hang in their bedrooms to remind them as they get ready in the morning.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
I will give James Cameron this, and this will be the only thing I thank him for. He never made me come face to face with the fact that those 2 dogs that were led onto the Titanic at the very beginning, those beautiful rich people dogs, are clearly dead.
Yeah.
Like, he made me watch 2 old people snuggle before the water rushed on them, but he never went, and Natalie, here's that dog you got attached to.
Yeah.
Here's that dog. You were like, that's a beautiful dog. It's gonna die.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I also will give him that, because I don't think I could have handled that.
Yeah. There were a lot of things that made me cry during the musical Come From Away, but it was a fact that there was one vet tech or animal rescue person, ranger, someone in the place in Canada that Come From Away takes place, who, when all of those planes landed, she was like, there will be people's pets on those planes and they will need to be like reunited with their owners, but also fed and sheltered, and like things will also have to be nice for them. And I was like, I go, I'm never taking Penelope on a boat or a plane.
There are so many horror stories about pets on planes, people going to pick up their animal and it's like no longer alive and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's so horror. And I need somebody to flood me with like success stories
Oh, yeah.
because the idea of flying across country and with the expectation to see Josephine at the end and then she's not there because of something that could have prevented her passing, I would lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally just like snuggled this morning in bed. Like I was spooning her and she just had drunk happy face. Like this is my life. I shouldn't have admitted that publicly.
Penelope and I are also sharing body warmth because we can't afford heat. So it feels like the Titanic in my home currently. Penelope's going to be waking up and I'll be hanging from the bed, a frozen corpse, and she'll be like, well, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you want to argue about the door like everyone does? Listen, I was there for Jack. The moment that she got on that door and he tried to get on the door and it fucking tried to capsize, I would also be done from there. I got this bitch off the boat.
Yeah.
I did my duty. We're not going to fight for space on this door and hope that it works out.
Yeah, because I forgot it capsizes when he tries to get on it too. And I think that I think if I were him, I would have been like, it's not worth it. If one of us is going to survive, it needs to be her.
Yeah. I'm convinced that that's what happened to Nayara Rivera from Glee. I was like, oh, that's probably what happened. She probably also tried to get herself into that boat after they righted it up and she couldn't. And the weight of her trying was threatening to get that boat into a shitty situation again.
Yeah. Not to get dark, but also the fact that they didn't find a body is still suspicious to me.
Oh, do you think she was murdered?
I don't know.
Do you have conspiracy theories? We can do that when we do our Still Comfy series on Instagram on Glee.
I sat through a case study of her her disappearance from the department that conducted her investigation.
But yeah, so people want to argue about that door and be like, Rose was so selfish. I was like, Rose was also half frozen. Like when they finally turned that boat around. Also, would you like to know the number of people who made it out of the water into lifeboats and got to survive?
Not very many.
It's like 6. Yeah. 6. Because I looked it up.
Yeah.
But then I saw conflicting numbers of how many survivors there were. I saw 700, which maybe 700 made it to lifeboats, but then 400 actually survived.
Because if you think about it, the after effects of being in extreme cold like that,
the exposure of it all. I was like, she's not in a great place either. What is she gonna like argue with him? She didn't even know he was dead.
Yeah.
She's just like singing to herself, looking at the sky.
And if you want to be mad at Rose, be mad because she jumped out of a lifeboat twice.
That's why I'm pissed that she survives. I'm like, that bitch. I go, we saw a woman frozen to her infant child, but Rose jumped out of a lifeboat twice.
Yeah.
Because she was orgasming. Like,
yeah. Which again, like that scene with any scene where there was a child who didn't survive broke my heart too much. I can't take it.
Because at the end, I decided that everyone who was clapping for them was in fact just a victim of this Titanic, not like their long lost friend. So when it was that little girl Cora, who he dances with before he dances with Rose, I was like, Cora didn't make it. There's our confirmation.
Yeah. During that scene, did you think when he was like, "Don't worry, Cora, you're still my girl," and then like winks at her, did you wonder, like, I wonder if they dated 10 years later? Because like,
Leo, call us now. If someone could get Leonardo DiCaprio on the line, I know he's not doing anything. Do you know my best friend was shocked that he didn't win an Oscar for this movie? I was like, did you not know that they refused to give Leonardo DiCaprio an Oscar until he got eaten by a bear?
By a bear, yeah.
He had to crawl his torso into the snow.
The movie that I was surprised that he didn't win for was Catch Me If You Can.
I know he
That
did
was
do
such,
some work.
and then also the other one was The Aviator. He was
Oh yeah.
so good as Howard Hughes. It was like
Listen,
disgustingly well performed.
I'm also not sure if I would be convinced that Jack would be someone to plan my life around. Fun for the boat. Fun to
Fun for
piss
the
off my
boat.
fun to piss off my fancy fiance with.
Because you know, at the end of the day, who's to say that she's gonna like this whole footloose and fancy free? Because he's like, because his mom, for all her faults, but she does bring up interesting points.
Yeah.
Well, where do you stay? Like, what do you do? And he's like, well, right now it's the RMS Titanic. And, I've been all over. And some people can't handle that. And
No.
she's only ever known comfort and stability. So who's to say if they got off the boat together and he wants to go to the Wild West next, that she'd be like, yeah, let's just travel across country in 1912. It's
Yeah, I want to be
fine.
in Deadwood. I'm also convinced that how long was the trip supposed to be on the Titanic?
I think a week.
A week?
I think.
Okay. I'm convinced that at the end of the separate universe where the Titanic makes it and everything goes right, there's no way she sneaks off that boat with him.
Yeah.
It's a week of fun. And then push comes to shove and she's like, but my family has money.
Like, what do you mean this is what we're eating for dinner? Like, what do you mean? You know what I mean? Like, there's little comforts that if I don't know.
It's real fun when it's just dancing in the basement of a boat.
And drinking beer.
And doing that stupid, like the fact that so I can't remember if this is James Cameron Titanic lore, but I believe that the big her like showing off to the men with her like
Ballet.
toes with her ballet is because someone was talking to Kate Winslet about how she could do point because she was a former ballerina or trained or something. So they just wrote it into the movie. I'm like, what a dumb thing to write into a movie. It's dumb. But I remember trying to do it as a kid.
Oh, I did train in ballet. I didn't make it to point, but I liked to pretend that I made it to point.
I couldn't ever do it barefoot, but there were certain pairs of shoes where I could do it.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was really, and we kind of touched on it already with Billy Zane, but just watching the demise of all the powerful men become completely cowardly.
But then,
with the exception of the captain, and the architect of the boat.
Well, and Gutenberg or Gulenberg or
Guggenheim.
He's like, he's like, I'm putting on my best outfit and I'm gonna meet this water head on. And I was like, I respect that.
Where's my brandy? Get me a brandy so I can like
with his like little male attendant who was probably his boyfriend and everything. And I was like, I respect this. Hold that man's hand, stare into the water. That's what I'm doing when the zombies happen.
Yeah.
It's like when the aliens were threatening to come down over the Super Bowl, I was like, me first.
Can we just talk about Ohio's had a lot of fucked up shit happen in the last 24 hours.
Were the aliens still
here?
Were the aliens still in Ohio? Were the aliens in Ohio too, or just the train? That train is nowhere near me. No one is talking about it.
The train? Why did I think the alien thing?
Because of all the corn we grow here.
Bad at geography beyond like east of California. So bad at it.
Listen, do you think that outside of one of our group chats, I Googled what the alien story was? No, I just accepted that aliens were here. My friend had to tell me it's because we keep shooting stuff out of the sky, but they won't tell us what they're shooting out of the sky. I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, where? What? And she goes, yeah, Nelly, that's how we got that Chinese balloon. And I was like, I thought it fell. I literally thought that it just malfunctioned and fell. And then we were like, China's been spying on us again.
Yeah. When the Shade Room posted that the Biden administration was going to shoot it down, I was like, oh my God. Because days before that, somebody else, I forget which outlet, was like, here are the reasons why we think we'll be in a war with China soon. And then like 4 days later, Biden's shooting it out of the air. And I was like,
with his own pistol. But like,
I was like, I don't like this timeline.
Alec Baldwin style.
I hate this timeline so hard. I don't like it here.
Who was the president who accidentally shot someone during a hunting thing?
Dick Cheney.
I feel like it.
It
Oh
was
yeah, Dick
Vice
Cheney.
President Dick Cheney.
Yeah,
But was it
Biden
an
called
accident though?
Cheney,
Did
and
you see?
he's like, how do I get this balloon out of the sky? And Dick was like, I got a shotgun. Hold on.
I got a shotgun and I got the other guy to apologize. It was his fault,
It
but
was his fault.
the other guy still did a press conference and apologized. That's some
Okay,
fucking
Dick.
stick power.
All right, Dick. But anyways, I didn't Google the articles about why we thought aliens were here. I was just like, take me first. Take me first. I'll do the butt stuff. Like, take me first. I hate it here. Do you guys have socialism or capitalism? Tell me. What do
How
you
much
have?
how much equality exists for women because I'm real tired of
Right.
working. I'm real tired of working 4 times as hard as I need to just to buy food.
Listen, I bet you that women are real popular in space. That's what Star Trek led us to believe. That
Oh,
we
for
are
sure.
scarce and popular in space.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wait, there was another thing where I was like, however, when she did tell Leo in that car to put her hands on her, I was like, I'm
Uh-huh.
gonna use that line later. I go, that's a good line. That's a
It's
hot line.
it's in stuff. It's been in
Oh,
stuff since then for the last 25 years.
I wrote down a really good point and then forgot to say it during our class war discussion.
Say it
This is
now.
my exact sum up of the class war. Poor people are still disposable during an emergency. We saw this with COVID. Don't let the petticoats fool you. It's still a problem today.
Yeah, it really is.
Titanic is just Thelma and Louise on the sea.
Yeah, you could take it. You could make Titanic today. You could modern day it. It could be a current ship where people are leaving Ireland to come to New York City, even though we have other means of transportation. But the same thing would
Also,
happen.
can we talk about how Billy Zane taught men that it doesn't matter what's going on around you, including a natural disaster? Um, if you feel really petty about your woman and some other dude, chase them with a gun.
Chase
Murder those people.
chase them with a gun.
Murder them before the Atlantic can.
Accuse them of theft.
Theft. Yeah. He is the reason why I watch so many murder documentaries on Netflix. Billy Zane taught us that the only way to deal with your woman be wild in is to chase her with a gun. And I'm like, Billy, the Atlantic is about to take care of this for you. Get on a lifeboat.
Well, and I feel like that's just another another really like interesting sign of the classism too, where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, or the illusion of everything's okay, don't panic, don't worry. But the juvenileness, that's a word,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of still thinking that your problem matters, even though they're telling you to put a life vest on and
And it's
to
not
get
like
as quickly to a boat as possible.
it's those first 10 minutes of the Titanic hitting the iceberg where they won't believe Rose and Jack and what they saw.
Right,
We are well in to this fucking boat sinking.
right.
He's chasing them through fucking water. And I was
Yeah.
like, Billy, if you give it 20 minutes, the iceberg is going to do this for you.
Yeah, and he does. He has that moment of realization where it's like, "Oh, what deck am I on? Oh, the water's up to my waist.
Yeah.
Ooh, I gotta
Yeah.
find a kid to save my life."
Billy, like the misuse of priorities. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, how is it? Because other people have you've got mothers telling their children Irish folklore, you've
Mhm.
got people praying with a priest asking for God's divine intervention. People have accepted this isn't going to be great.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work out for us. Not Billy though. Billy's like, I'm going to kill that motherfucker because it is my right as an American man. As a white man, I get to kill him. I am rich.
As a wealthy. Mhm.
I am rich.
I do love is this terrible to say? I do appreciate that his story came to a tragic end
Oh yeah.
because of the stock market crashing. I mean, maybe not necessarily the whole gun to the mouth thing, but it was almost like, well, the
I
stock market
enjoyed that.
crashing and you having no money is kind of like cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, I can't believe that neither. this is also how you know that, like, rich people don't pay attention to anything. At no point did Billy Zane or Rose's mom go, "Is there a girl with Dawson on this boat that you found as a last name?"
Honestly.
Honestly, she didn't do a great job.
No, because and how as you as a mother not reading every fucking manifesto after, because
Mhm.
that would be the first thing I would do. I need to see the list. And there was a woman who's like, look at the list. I need to see the list. Is my like, no, I would be like scouring every piece of paper with everyone's name with any version of.
How about when the unsinkable Molly Brown couldn't get the rich ladies to turn back to help people with
Mhm.
these half-assed full lifeboats, and
Yeah.
she's like, "I don't understand a one of you. Those are your husbands.
Right.
They're not mine.
Right.
Those people screaming because they just fell off of a boat, your man."
Yeah. And that's an interesting commentary though, because it means that you really didn't marry for love. You truly just married as a position.
And, I mean, and I don't think Molly was on the same boat where the woman barely got her kids on and that dad had to beg them until he could no longer see them that it was all gonna be alright, and daddy's had a boat too. And I'm, like, sitting there and I'm like I was like, "Fuck." Not a one woman went, "Yeah, Molly, you're right." Like, there was no vote. It says in Titanic historical lore that she was outvoted. She tried to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in the moment where they're like, "I just watched a lifeboat get out of this boat and it has 10 people on it." And I'm like, "How was that even allowed?"
It made me wonder, did they think that they could go back and get more or whatever it was?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it kind of shows you it doesn't really matter how much you plan or and prepare for an
Oh,
emergency.
yeah.
There's still hierarchy is still going to happen.
Well, and panic.
Yeah.
Literal just, like because we also saw that when one boat was lowering quicker than the other and it was gonna crush people
Right.
because that boat had gotten stuck. I'm like and they're trying to cut it and all of
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, "Whoo." I was like, "Emergencies be emergencies."
Yeah, yeah, and it's almost like the tragedy of being first on the boat
Yeah.
is the tragedy of being first on the boat, off of the boat into the lifeboats is now you have to watch this and you're helpless.
Yes.
The other side of that tragedy is trying to be the person who kind of came to the gate late, where you're just like, "Oh no, now we understand that this is a problem."
Yeah.
And we're all fighting for, the last 3 boats.
Um, just, like, hearing it all. I do think that this movie is very long. I couldn't decipher what I would cut from it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I was thinking about that too because it is really long. I don't know if we needed the crash to be in kind of like a real-time scenario for the ship
Mm. Yeah.
because there was a lot of running, like the whole the whole bit of Billy Zane chasing them in the water. Did we really need that?
No, we didn't.
That's
I
20
also don't
minutes right there.
that's 20 minutes of him just chasing them with the gun. Um, then I will say that I do think that this is a really great homage to how the Titanic tragedy probably went
Mhm.
down.
Mhm.
Like, it was gritty and it was realistic, and I think that through Jack and Rose being morons and only caring about one another, we do see the crash at all sides of that really big
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
will never be on a really big boat.
no. When you were talking about the scene with the dad comforting his daughter, like, "There's
Mm-mm.
another boat for daddies, don't worry," like, I couldn't hold it in, I was crying. It's
Yeah.
so hard. I hate this idea. I hate that we have a society and a culture that devalues any sort of familial connection that exists, that
Mhm.
isn't just like, because it's so easy to be like dads are trash, but then when you have like an actually good dad that exists,
Yeah.
he's not allowed to exist because the system doesn't want good dads.
Well, and I understand that they really thought it was noble. Get the women and the children out
Yeah.
first. Um, But if I make it to America and my husband is frozen in the Atlantic, what is next for me?
There's nothing you can do. I was thinking about that. It was like all these women with children have to remarry because they can't get jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do get a job, it's a domestic, it's some sort of cleaning, it's some sort of seamstressness, a governess of some kind.
Because that's how Rose's mom gaslights her. Oh, so you just want me working in a sweatshop?
Yeah.
You want me to be like a tailor maid?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking me to do? Because you don't want to be hit by Cal one more time? Okay.
Because the real solution is you should have had enough fucking boats for every passenger. Yeah. Like airplanes have life vests for every passenger and big enough inflatables to hold every passenger. Like this is what the standard needs to be. If you say you're at capacity, your capacity is 300, then you have a plan for all 300 to be saved.
Well, and I think it's a very interesting juxtaposition about how much the architect designed compared to how much that coward asshole was willing to pay for.
Right. Right. And was obsessed with getting a headline. Like
you never were going to anyways.
You were going to the
motherfucking
anyway,
Titanic.
And you never should have turned on those extra boilers.
That was a really great foreshadowing though, when he was like, I just want a headline. I was like, ooh, baby, you getting it. You manifested that.
Yep. How great would it be if we showed up, on Tuesday instead of Thursday? And you're just like, but they're safe. Like, leave it to the professionals. Leave it to the man who's been doing this for 25 years and understands the physics behind having a ship cross the Atlantic.
Well, and then again, like the way that they just wove in all of the signs. If anyone was talking to anyone and you just continue to follow the signs, you're like, we're all fucking dying tonight. When they were like, well, the water's really calm, so I guess we'll go faster. And then someone goes, that'll make it impossible to see icebergs, though. And it's literally like they're having a conversation. They watch Rose and Jack make out for a little bit and then make fun of it. And then they look. I have also been this person in the car where you like turn up the radio or something and you look and you're like, where did that come from?
Right. Damn it, James Cameron. I hate it. I hate you. I hate this. I hate that it's actually a good movie. You make me cranky.
Here's the thing. Avatar's not a good movie, so.
So yeah, it is. And it's offensive to our.
Avatar's not a good movie. At me.
I don't have to at you. I know.
They really milked it out of that Celine Dion song. I didn't know how many variations they had playing of it all the time.
Do you remember when she performed at the Academy Awards and she was wearing the necklace and and she like bangs her chest and the necklace? Like I remember watching, was it Entertainment? I think it was Entertainment Tonight at that point when they were like talking about how like the jewelry company was like panicking because she's such a engaged singer that they were so concerned it would be damaged.
Honestly, though, my sister and I used to sing "My Heart Will Go On." My mom hates Celine Dion, and I own that entire album, not the Titanic soundtrack, the literal album that "My Heart Will Go On" is on. My favorite Celine Dion song, "It's All Coming Back to Me Now." I love Celine.
Yeah.
But my sister and I used to take all of the divas that my mom hated, Bette Midler, Celine Dion.
Your mom hated Bette Midler?
I think she just hates beaches. But we would do like a medley of My Heart Would Go On. Then we'd get bored with that, go right into Wind Beneath My Wings, do a little rock-a-doodle to see if we could really push her over the edge because our bathroom was so echoey.
Oh my God. I'm just floored that your mom would hate Bette Midler. She's a fucking gem.
She's the fucking icon. I think it's mostly beaches. I think my mom was like, why are you guys obsessed with beaches, your children?
Such a good movie.
I also love the song The Rose. So I say hello.
Can we talk? I fucking love that movie.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
Thanks,
Napoleon Dynamite, for bringing it back.
But the movie The Rose with Bette Midler?
It's so good.
It is such a good movie.
It's so good. And so we performed My Heart Will Go On at my sister's wedding and then did a repeat at my dad's wedding.
Nice.
There's a lot of interpretive dancing to the My Heart Will Go On.
I love that.
And yeah, it's a banger. It's a banger, and it should have. Did it win the Academy Award?
I don't remember.
I don't
We should
remember
have looked
either.
up awards facts for this, but you know what? I don't care.
I guess I thought that I would retain them because my friend was hyper focused and reading them to me on the phone, but I was eating French fries, so
Yeah.
I was like, "Why are you reading me the internet?" Like,
Better than her printing it out. I love the people who print out the internet and bring it to
oh,
me.
print out the internet.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
cute.
You're right.
Yeah,
So it's that time.
here it is.
Are you still comfy with the Titanic?
I am. If just because they're 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
It all makes sense because they're 17-year-olds. If you
Yeah.
would have told me that, because when I was 10 years old, I assumed Rose was 30 years old. Like, everyone looks
Uh-huh.
so grown up when you're 10 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I was so shocked to see that she actually looked like a teenager, and I just happened to be a dumb child. But
I don't think you were a dumb child. I think that you're absolutely
yeah,
right. When we're younger and there's somebody who's older, and the concept of marriage, like we didn't know
yeah.
that they married off children. Still
So
do.
I am still comfy with Titanic because technically it is making all of the points that I would make. Billy Zane bad. Teenagers love to fuck. Titties. Sketching nudes.
Sketching
If
nudes.
it, and what a way to break up with someone, leaving your nude in a safe. I'm also gonna do that one day.
That was such a baller move,
It's
dude.
such a fucking baller move. Like, here's a hand sketched nude from this dude that you hate.
And then Billy Zane can't even bring himself to rip it.
No, because he's like, I want to see them titties again.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, she's hot." Like,
He's so hot, 17 years old. So had I have missed the line again, and if my friend had not read to me from the internet that Rose was 17 years old, it would be a completely different story. I would like to know what accent Kate Winslet was trying to pull off in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, what accent is this?
yeah, because it wasn't a Philadelphia accent.
No. At one point, it was like Cockney.
Do you think she was having a hard time grasping the American accent? Usually British people do a really good job at getting the American accent.
So I assume I don't know why I assumed this. They didn't have French accents, but Americans tend to ignore shit like that in movies. I guess I thought that Billy Zane was in Europe. They lived in Europe and they were bringing her home to America. But you're probably right. They were probably
His dad
just
was
American.
there. Yeah, his dad was there too. Like
Yeah.
something about steel.
Yeah, steel. It sunk the boat.
And
But yeah,
some steel.
honestly, like, Titanic tracks, that is exactly how 17-year-olds behave. We're gonna be in love
Mhm.
forever. I can't wait for this boat to crash and for me to tell you exactly how to run in the water. And we're gonna get it. And Rose, you never let go. You have to promise me that you'll survive. The literal veracity that goes through like 17-year-olds' chemicals in their brain. Oh,
Yeah.
a friend told me one time, my best friend told me one time that a boy told her, I really like you, and her retort was, no you don't, I'm just messy and toxic. and and I texted her last night and I was like, did Jack love Rose or was she just messy and toxic?
Mm,
And then
mm.
did I grow up to be messy and toxic? Because I know what boys like. I know what guys want. Taylor Swift told me, they only want love when it's torture. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I am still comfy with Titanic. I believe that it is a perfect um commentary on both the tragedy that was the Titanic and our modern age.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, this whole train bullshit, it's because some rich man paid for that train. They won't do the fast track train so I can get to California via train and I don't have to take my cat on a plane.
Mhm.
And if they did do the fast track train and it immediately fucking crashed, it would be because of some cocky white man problems.
He has to say, because bullet trains exist in other countries just fine.
Right. It would be cocky white man problems.
That needs to be an actual definition in
It's
some
just
sort of diagnostic manual.
let's literally redo the poster of Titanic. Titanic, cocky white man problems.
17-year-old tragedy with a dash of 17-year-old tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like you, I am still comfortable with this movie. Like there's so many little pieces of it that make it really good. I think the thing, again, like I said earlier, that bothers me so much is that they're very short and quick in saying she's 17.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't catch it, you don't know that she's 17, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
watching it as though she's 17. You're
Yeah.
watching it as if she's a grown-ass woman. And they even correct themselves sometimes and say, well, she's a woman. It's like, no, bitch, she's 17.
She's 17.
But I don't know if I'll watch it again because it's so fucking
Oh, it's
long.
so fucking long. Jules, do you know when I watched this movie? After Riri's Super Bowl performance, because I kept putting it off because I was like, it's fucking 3 hours long.
3 hours and 16 minutes. It's not even like Endgame was 302.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how could we
It's
all
like-
lose our shit about Endgame being 302? And this is 316. It is 14 minutes longer than Endgame.
My friend who did get to see it in the theaters when we were in the 3rd grade, she was like, there was an intermission.
I do remember that because it was such a long film. Oh
Yeah.
my God. When it's on TV, they cut it down really well because I think they only do a 3-hour block, maybe 4.
I'm just saying, I put it off until like 9 p.m. on Sunday. And I went, I guess this is my dumbass choice. Because I knew that if I bitched out halfway through, I could realistically watch it before our show tonight, the last hour. But the point of bitching out is when the fucking iceberg hits and you're like, oh, I'm going to bitch out now.
Yeah.
When I know the water's coming and it's about to get fucking real.
Right.
Then your adrenaline's all back up again.
Mm-hmm.
To have watched the iceberg hit. And and the fact that the boat was big enough that the iceberg hit and some people weren't even aware of it. Don't be on big boats.
Right.
That boat was too big. I don't trust it.
Don't trust big boats.
Cocky white man problems.
Just
someone was compensating for something.
Well, and she comments a little bit on that about the name. Remember at the dinner they had? She's like, "Are you familiar with Freud?"
I do.
And he's like, I'm going to have to look into this Freud person. And you're just like, oh my God.
I will say that Rose is also a clear-cut contender for maybe being the first time we understood pretty girl privilege. Because the architect literally only whispers to her, yeah, we're going down. I'm calling timber. Because he looks at her and sees a very pretty 17-year-old who's about to die.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a really fair point. Yeah. I do love Kate Winslet.
I do love Kate Winslet. I didn't get through that other movie with her and Leonardo DiCaprio, The Marriage, or The Last Marriage, or
They did another movie together?
Yeah, we were... Yes, it was a big deal when they reunited. And it was an Oscar-nominated film.
How do I not remember this?
And it's all about their divorce.
I don't remember this at all.
It is about marriage, but there isn't marriage in the title. It's Revolutionary Road.
Oh, okay. I do remember that. That's a book to screen
I got
adaptation.
through 30 minutes of that movie.
Yeah,
I was like, why people just complaining about their marriage problems? I'm like, is it not interesting?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Scarlett Johansson movie where she divorces Kylo Ren. I didn't watch Black Widow divorce Kylo Ren.
A Marriage Story.
I bet you it was hot.
It was okay.
I didn't do it.
It was okay. Everyone was raving about how great A Marriage Story was, and I sat through it and I thought, do I just not get it because I've never been married? I don't know.
This just in,
Maybe.
married people be unhappy.
Yeah, apparently. They keep making divorce stories. There's even a show called Divorce starring
Right.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie, what's coming up on your show this week?
Oh, what is coming up on my show this week? Last week was All or Nothing Thinking with Kate House. Tomorrow we will be on the Men I've Tolerated Instagram, Men I've Tolerated Pod, talking about episodes 10, 11, and 12 of One Tree Hill. I will have to revisit my notes on them because we were supposed to do that show last week, but Mama threw up with a migraine and then Jules's phone crapped the bed. So
So
it was not meant to be.
It was not meant to be.
It was not meant to be. I'm convinced that Chad Michael Murray himself is coming to the show tomorrow since it was not meant to be last week. And this week it is, I just fucking edited this episode. Why? Oh, why can I not remember what it would? Oh, it's Carly Adams and the Princess Syndrome. Your friend, my friend,
that.
Carly Adams from the Tidy Revival. And we will talk about all about little girls growing up to believe that they should be princesses made out with while they're asleep.
I saw a TikTok.
Did you see it? Why didn't you send it to me?
I don't remember if I did
love
it
TikTok.
where the guy talks about, maybe I saw it on Instagram after, you know how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And he does this side by side. He's like, how come all the little white princesses are fully clothed and, you know, angelic looking, but then all the brown princesses are like half clothed and like,
oh, it's almost like you wanted them to look the EX word.
uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's a really good point. Do we need to examine Disney on my show next season?
An entire season of Disney. Do you know the Disney adults would go wild? Oh my God.
Because I found this other guy on TikTok who I really want to reach out to and be like, be on my show. And I sent you one of his videos. I forget which one it was, where he's like watching this film in 2020.
Oh, I watch them all the time.
And, yeah, and trying to
Have
figure
you
out
seen
why
the
I'm
Dumbo
uncomfortable.
one?
Yes! I was watching the Dumbo one and I was like, oh,
and it's like,
we watched Dumbo all the time
well, and
at my
here's the thing.
grandmother's house.
At this point, I know everything he's going to comment on, but watching it again, you're like, ooh, baby mine, baby mine.
It's like and he does it in such a beautiful way because he's not like directly like calling it out, being like, this is problematic, because I'm getting kind of tired of the word problematic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But he is like, and it is egregious. It's like the Peter Pan one, you're just like, holy shit, that is offensive.
No.
And not because people are trying to be like more conscious and aware. It is flat out offensive.
My friend from book club and I spent many an events just doing this. It's called my clock it so we talk about it later face.
Yeah.
And he does it perfectly. What's coming up on your show this week?
This week we have a new episode. Our Jelly Pops will know that we went down to every other week for releasing because I now have 2 jobs because capitalism. And we are taking a look at Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss. As a refresher, we're studying wealthy women this season. And Angela Bauer from Who's the Boss is a really good example of when people hate women who have power and money.
And you know what? I haven't listened to the episode today because I started a job today, but I'm looking forward to it because I remember Tony Danza being a gem in that show. Like, look, Tony Danza not having one bit of toxic masculinity in him.
I remember that too.
Boy.
I remember that too. And then somebody, my guest, Libby Saylor, was telling me that there's a handful of seasons on, I want to say Peacock, not every season. So I would thought, I'm going to go back and maybe watch and just kind of get a refresher in between. And then re-listen to the episode and then maybe start a discussion in the Facebook group. I don't know. Because I remember loving the show. I remember loving that she was working and that he was at home. Like there was just so many things about it that were just
and that they weren't married for the longest time.
Yeah.
He was literally her employee.
Yes.
So he could support his daughter.
Yes. And it was such a flip script and it was so honest and innocent in a way. Like everything now has to have a message, and it can't just be like there can't be like
Yeah.
layered messaging. It just has to be very blatant, and that
No nuance.
yeah, like why do we have to be so black and white about shit? Like our life is nuanced. How are we not capturing that anymore? Anyway, so that's coming up this week on Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous. And like Natalie said, we'll be on the River Court tomorrow night on Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram, which currently Instagram is the only thing that I can get to work on my new phone. So that's fun.
Well, everybody, stay off of big boats. We're going to see if Jules can cut off the live before YouTube flags us for plagiarism, because I'm going to sing My Heart Will Go On. And stay cozy, stay comfy. We'll see you tomorrow night on the River Court. Every night in my dreams,
Bye, friends. We'll see you.
see you. I feel